Hi there and welcome to second bonus lesson from Vertex Pusher. In this little lesson I really want to solve some issues that were bugging my customers, and we should start right away. The first issue we are going to solve is related to piping method, and a customer asked me how can you rotate this pipe in other direction. By other direction I mean, let me just doodle it. Okay. I like this red color, it's really nice, isn't it? By other direction I mean this, not this. So basically this thingy, not the orientation. Okay, I'll delete that. And some of you may say, well, why don't you just select the whole object, put the axis all the way in the center and simply rotate the whole thing? Well, sure, but what if? There is always a what if. What if you have some feature modeled here? Let's just do that. Let me select my knife tool, and it's in plane mode, because if I select a loop mode, then this loop will be distorted because of this break in geometry. So I want a nice clean loops. I will select plane for this demonstration. So let's say we have some sort of a feature modeled here. Really doesn't matter, a simple something thingy. Okay, something like this. Firstly, I have to terminate this selection. Be careful to select also this edge and this one too. And basically, you have to create the break in your geometry. So I will fill that selection. And now I have to disconnect it with this little icon I have in my layout, or the shortcut UD. A little menu will pop up and you will say OK and check preserve groups if it is unchecked. So now, although this is a single object, this piece of geometry is actually disconnected, as you can see. We can do that, and we are again presented with a problem. We can see if we are going to change the orientation of our pipe. If we rotate, it's not going to work. Our axis, our origin of rotation has to be in center of this tube. In this case, to solve this, I'll simply select this axis option, modeling axis, and select root. It's really simple. And some of you might ask, why didn't I use this axis center command? Well, I didn't use it because it's simply designed to work on whole objects, not the components. And there is also one little trick here. If for some reason none of these options is working for you, you can press the F10 key on your keyboard and you will be able to move and position the axis wherever you want in modeling mode. I'll just undo that. You can of course utilize snapping options if you want to snap that axis specifically on some point edge or wherever you want. So now when our rotation origin is in the proper place, we can simply rotate this any way we want. For purpose of this demonstration, let's say 30 degrees. Actually, that would be too good because you can see the geometry would connect flawlessly, and that is almost always impossible. So let's do some arbitrary, like something like this, so we have overlapping connections here. I will fill this selection, move it just a bit, this one too. So you know the multi-bridge technique. You can even help yourself. For example, I select in these two loops. Okay, we will select boundary loop here. See why? Because we have this geometry here and we don't want this. Simply deselect it in my live tool. And now, instead of zero extruding, which I prefer, you could always utilize your stitch and sew tool and hold shift while you are doing it, because then it will create new geometry. Okay, so you don't have to extrude. I prefer to do zero extrude for some I don't know which reason, but I prefer to do it. You can do this the same thing on the other side. Okay, so shortcut for stitch and sew tool is MP, and we will hold the shift key and simply stitch these two guys together, something like this. Okay, although it seems it's not good, it actually is. So if you look at your object in without wires, you'll see it's really good. It's really good. So we basically solved the problem. You can rotate it any way you want, keep the edge flow, keep the quality of the surface, and let's go to another example. Here we are with our next pipe thingy. So a customer asked me how can he extrude a pipe but in really specific angle, because as you most certainly remember from the tutorial, if I do a cut here just to prepare everything for the extrusion, it's really a 90-degree angle. You can illustrate that a bit just to help us visualize that. Oops, I'll do a zero extrusion. So the angle between these two pipes is 90 degrees. So the problem was, if you offset this a bit, you will get the angle you want, but you will lose the quality of this pipe. It's no longer a pipe, it's like a half pipe. Well, to resolve this, I'll just undo all that to a starting point. Here we are. Well, to resolve this, we will need a reference object here. For our reference object, we will use a simple polygon. Just bring it out a bit and up, and also scale it a bit. I could also probably check this X-ray option just to be able to see through it a bit. So we can convert it with our C button, and I will rotate it 45 degrees. I have to be in my object mode. Okay. So if you take a closer look, this is exactly what the knife tool did in previous example. This 45-degree rotated polygon would be the exact reference for 90-degree extrusion. However, I want this axis to be exactly lying on this point, and I want that point to be exactly here. So let's do that. Let's go to our structure, axis center, and if I fiddle around with settings now, nothing will happen until I hit the execute button. Then you will see a change. This is because this auto update is not checked in. If you check that, then the changes will appear instantly in the viewport. So I'll set that to be here. I can close this guy. Now if I switch my views, you can see I want to position that really precisely, and I can do that with help of the stepping. So I'll press my P key, tear off this menu, enable 3D snapping, and just point snapping. And I will play a bit until that point snaps exactly on that cylinder point. I will disable snapping. We are pretty much set to go. So now we have a visual guide. If you zoom in, you will see that snapping did really perfect job. It snaps absolutely perfectly. So now, if I use my knife tool and follow this contour of this polygon as a reference, I will get exactly 90-degree extrusion. And the really nice thing is, if you want to extrude on a specific angle, you will type here that exact angle. So let's say we want maybe 60-degree angle. So I will simply enter here -60, okay, and that rotation will offset from this center, okay. -60 can also be +60, but that will give different results, meaning it will be oriented differently, okay. In this specific case, I really want a 60-degree extending from this pipe, this future pipe that we will extrude. So now, as we have our visual guide, we will select our tube, activate the knife tool. We have to be in component mode, and we can do our cut. Now, to snap to this edge, you will simply activate snapping, and I always tear off this menu to have a lot of control and activate just edge snapping, and you will see it automatically snaps to edge. Do your first cut, and following the same method, do the second cut. Now you can deactivate snapping and hide this polygon reference. And you will probably think I'm good to go. I can now select my edges, contours, and simply fill that selection, and I will simply extrude it. But we face another problem. We don't really have this axis properly oriented in that 60-degree direction. And no matter what you select here, you can cycle all those modes and nothing will work. So how do we solve this? We will solve this by helping ourselves with exactly the same polygon. Fortunately, Cinema 4D gives you an option here under modeling axis that you can use an object to orient your axis. And in this case, we will use this polygon. So now these selected faces are oriented exactly as this polygon is oriented. Let me just illustrate this. It's completely, you see, this is the polygon object and axis is oriented this way, and also in our faces mode, those faces are oriented the same way. I hope I haven't lost anyone. This is really the important part. Now you have to, on your original reference object, you have to go in axis mode and you have to add exactly the same number of degrees once more. Okay? May sound a bit odd, but just do it. So I have -60 here, and if I rotate a bit more, I have to add 60 degrees more. Okay? So it's basically always double the number you have here. We have this blue z-axis pointing down, and you will see if I go to my object in faces mode that it's following that orientation. Now I will hide this polygon object, it's kind of in the way. Now you can actually extrude that properly in 60-degree angle. So let's do that. Let's hit D key, do a 0 extrusion, and simply pull that guy out. Okay, I'll just cut this in my top view and select this and fill the selection so I can get rid of this bad part, I should say. And now we have a proper 60-degree angle here. Just extend this a bit more. You can test the angle to see if it's right with this measure and construction guy. So the first measure would be here, this point and this point, and I have to create a third point, so I will put that green guy here all the way here. So now you can see those are the distances, the lengths, and the angle in between is 60 degrees, exactly what we wanted to. I hope this was not so complicated, and please abuse all these methods in your modeling. Here we go to our next example. Okay, here we are in our next example, and this technique is well generally known as a quad cap. This is exactly a file that one customer sent me, and he said, how can I close this to be smooth, nice and smooth and organic, and to follow this let's say a curved shape, and to have exactly the same topology, exactly the quad topology here? Well, the answer is quite simple. As you previously saw in tutorial, you could possibly do a loop selection here and do a zero extrude and simply collapse that. And that can work sometimes, and you could bevel this and manually cap off, but the problem is when you have such a large quantity of information, you have really many edges, many points, and manually capping this off and solving two quads would be really time consuming. So what you want to do is actually to go here under Windows, Selection Structure Info, and see how many points do you have. Okay. Reselect this and try again. And you can see here that you actually have 32 edges. Okay, so that's 32 points. So what we want to do is to create a plane, and because plane has 4 sides, you simply divide that 32. Go here to my wireframe mode to exactly see the amount of information I have. So if you divide 32 by 4, you will get 8. So we'll drop 8 here in the segments and simply convert that. Now we will position our cap here, simply scale it down somewhere around maybe here. And what I prefer to do, I almost always smooth this cap out in really big radius, something like this, and with let's say 50% strength. So have a rough representation of this shape. I'll put it down a bit, something like this. Maybe scale it a bit more, just to get that general shape out. Maybe this, we can even rotate it a bit. Okay, I think we are good to go. Somewhere along these lines, doesn't have to be perfect for this tutorial. Now we have to select both those objects and simply connect them, so we have a single geometry. Now it's just a matter of selecting both those loops. We will activate boundary loop here, so we can select the boundary loop. And with our stitch and sew tool, we can hold the shift key down and simply patch those two together. Now if I do a fill selection here and iron this out, excuse me, brush this out, I can close this and have a really good topology. If I just increase that selection a bit more, grow it a bit, and simply brush a bit more, I will have really good results. So I maintain the topology, I maintain the number of vertices, and the surface looks really nice. That's it, so we will continue with our next example. In this example I really want to talk just a bit about bevels. So let's, for example, if you select a single edge here and you want to bevel it with this icon here, or you can press the MS shortcut, and if you do a bevel command, you will see you ran into problems here, especially if you increase the subdivision. You will get triangles and all that weird geometry and so on and so forth. I generally tend to really don't use bevel tool on edges. The bevel tool actually works really nice on faces, so I can demonstrate that. But the problem is you don't have an offset here. What I tend to do the most of the time is to use knife tool in loop mode. So for example, if I want to bevel this edge here, or this whole side, the whole face, I will do a knife cut here. I will simply select this, let's say, outer loop and scale it a bit inward. So now I have, and pull it outside, now I have some sort of a bevel. To really play with the look of that bevel, I do additional cut inside, and now you can scale that by scaling. Let me just zoom this a bit. By scaling this cut, you can have a convex or concave shape. I hope you can see that. So let's say something like this. This type of beveling with the knife tool is much better because it doesn't produce triangles, and it produces much cleaner results. I'm going to show you where the actual problem is. Let's say you want to bevel with the bevel tool these edges here, and watch what happens. Those sides are nice, but look at the corner is a complete mess. So rather spend some time with the knife tool and to do manual bevels rather than clean up this mess here. Okay, that's it for the bonus lessons. Please fire away with your suggestions on my topic on C4D Cafe, and also keep sending those emails, and I will be happy to produce some more bonus lessons for you guys. Thank you for watching.